Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome into the Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Springer, as always, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, as the title of our show uh, indicates, we've got some other off topics that we wouldn't normally talk about. Uh, but how are you doing this fine Monday?
Doing pretty good. Here at Indiana Wesleyan, we're into our final week of classes and then finals the week after that. So we're winding down, but yeah, I'm just kind of ready to keep the ball rolling here. We're gonna have some stuff to talk about today on the show, but obviously, I think we both expected it to be a bit more eventful this
I
weekend than what
did.
it was. Not a whole lot of new news in the past couple of days since we last recorded.
Yeah, I expected to be talking about somebody that had been added by the Boilers to their roster for next season, but that has not come to fruition yet. The one that we had talked about on Friday, Elijah Saunders from Virginia, not that we expected him to be a Boilermaker, but from what we were hearing, he was at that point kind of the the head front runner to be the next one that signed on if somebody did. And instead, he went away from his top five as he was so tagged. And I believe Kansas State was in that, and Texas Tech and Purdue, a return to Virginia, and another one.
I think Grand Canyon, I think,
Yeah,
might have been
Grand
in there,
Canyon. Thank you. That
which
was
I think
it.
was a hometown school, which is
Yeah.
the only reason they were really on there.
And so, of course, he signs and commits to Maryland.
Yeah, yeah. I guess
Yeah,
Buzz Williams is doing some work over there already.
yeah, the Buzz Williams is an interesting coach. He makes it he does not hide his intentions when he goes to a school. His go 5 or 6 years, get as much possible positive as done at the place, and if something else arises, go ahead and take that, because he you know has gone on the record to say that sometimes you wear out your welcome, so to speak, if you stay too long and you don't produce the way that you are expected. And in today's age and the way the game works, that's pretty true. That if you're not making things happen in 4 to 5 years, they're looking elsewhere. Look at Ben Johnson. Look at Mike Woodson. I mean, all those are just two examples uh, that we've seen just this last year in the Big Ten. So Buzz Williams making some splashes, getting some people to come in after Kevin Willard bolted for Villanova. And you know what? And I know this is Boilermaker Lounge, but I've really always liked Kevin Willard and what he did wherever he was at. He was at Seton Hall prior to Maryland, and I really thought that Maryland hit a home run with getting him to come to College Park. And you could almost see the writing on the wall when he was asked in the press conference after they beat, I think, Colorado State, even about his future. And he just kind of laid the cards out there saying, like, look, I'm not going to make a decision on whether I'm coming back yet until we have an AD. Like, the AD had already was leaving and going to SMU, and he made it very apparent. I think I guess Buzz Williams is a good replacement, but Kevin Willard, I really liked Kevin Willard as a coach.
Yeah, I think Villanova definitely made a good hire there
Yeah.
to replace Kyle Neptune. They could definitely become relevant in these next couple of years again, which that's fun for college basketball to have
Mm-hmm.
programs like Villanova
Mm-hmm.
be nationally relevant. Um, so yeah, that'll be interesting to watch him over at Villanova. But I do think Buzz Williams is a good basketball coach, and Maryland's going to
Sure he
continue
is.
to be relevant within the Big Ten. And they're always a team that even if they're not having a great year, you can't just chalk up a win against them. Even if they're, like I said, even if they're kind of a mediocre team in the Big Ten, they always come and bring a fight. And I know Purdue's had some years where they'll play a maybe depleted Maryland team and they'll play them in Mackey, and you're thinking it's going to be a comfortable win, and Maryland makes it a game. So, yeah, they're definitely still going to be a team to watch for, and they're starting to assemble a roster that might be competitive even this next year.
And minus Mackey Arena, I think College Park going to the Affinity Center is one of the
Yeah,
most difficult places to play. It's almost like Maryland is a completely different team when they're at home.
yeah, especially when they're playing a good team like Purdue.
Yep, yep. So, not a lot happening in the portal. We talked about Friday. Not a lot of even rumblings. Not that it's like the hot stove in baseball where you have these rumors that come out, regularly about players, and even if it's right or wrong, but with basketball, it just doesn't come out as much. And when it, or at least the college level, I guess in football it does come out a little bit more than basketball. But even more is Matt Painter doesn't like to show his hand much. You know what his needs are, their needs are, but you also don't know what he's thinking, and you don't know the process in which he analyzes these players to see if they fit in the Boilermakers. I still think Kennard Davis from SIU is one that you probably once he makes a decision, which I don't have any idea as to when that'll happen. I think he's probably and with Saunders going somewhere else, it makes me believe that Matt Painter maybe wasn't even targeting him as much as everybody was saying. And like maybe they made contact and Saunders said, "Hey, I wouldn't mind going to Purdue," but maybe that wasn't extended as far as we think maybe it had.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. There's still those couple international prospects that we talked about on Friday. And we also saw that Brooks Barnheiser has pretty much put to bed all the transfer portal rumors and whatnot. So to me, Kennard Davis is the only real transfer portal target that we really know of at this point. But certainly things can happen just
Oh, sure.
really quickly and on a sporadic sort of situation. So anybody of those guys could end up going to Purdue. I had a couple ideas. I don't know, like I'm not saying this would ever happen, but even a guy like R.J. Lewis, I think would be exactly what Purdue needs as far as basketball. I mean, he'd be a phenomenal wing to join their team. I don't think he's going to go to Purdue, but guys like that fit that mold that what Purdue needs from a stylistic standpoint could easily just flip. And next thing you know, Purdue's in the conversation. They're going to have a great year, and these guys decide they're on board with that. But I still think that Kennard Davis, if Purdue wants him, I think there's a good chance they get him. And it's just kind of a matter of time. But at the same time, like we said, it seemed like Purdue was going to be one of those top contenders for Elijah Saunders if they wanted him. Then he just kind of made the shocking commitment to Maryland. So you never really know what to expect. And just like Purdue could lose a guy like that when you don't expect them to, they can pick up a guy like that when you don't expect them to.
Oh, and we can put to rest any sort of cannon catchings coming back to Purdue because he did commit to Georgia just here in the past 24 hours or so. So he is going to Athens and not coming back to West Lafayette. I don't if slim to none was the chance I saw, and Slim was heading towards the door when we even breached that topic. But we did chat about the at least we toyed with the idea at least of maybe but yeah, I tell you what, when it comes to the history of Purdue with the portal, I trust Matt Painter. He's made some really good moves that benefited the team as a whole rather than the player that he brought in.
Yeah. No, I trust Painter. I trust the fact that he stays a little quieter and doesn't show his hand. To me, like I'd rather have a coach like that ends up making good decisions, but is patient and doesn't just show everybody everything. And then as opposed to like a coach that you know exactly what they're going to do, and then maybe they're going after guys and they don't get them, and now you're like, well, this coach is trying to get all these players and he's not being successful.
What's
and it starts to make
them?
Yeah, it starts to create some unrest, and then honestly could hurt maybe the brand of the program, which then hurts recruits that come in, whether it's transfer portal or incoming freshmen, any of those things. So, yeah, I am content with the way which Painter is doing things, and I'm sure that one way or another they're going to be able to fill out their roster well. And if nothing changes, they're still going to be a really good basketball team. They've added Oscar Clough, CJ Cox, and Jakari Harris, assuming they stay, are going to be much improved. Smith Lawyer come back. Like if the roster stays the way it is, we're still looking at one of the best teams in the country.
And I'm laughing because that leads me into the topic in which I want to do to one of the topics that is in our title. Uh, USA Today, as many other entities that and outlets that have put out there way too early for the 25-26 basketball season rankings. I look at these just to see where everybody's got teams or got certain teams and everything, and I click on the USA Today way too early, and I'm looking, and Houston's at the top. And we you and I did talk about at the begin or before we went on the air that Uzan has declared for the NBA. He's testing the waters to see what his projection could be. You know, that's the great thing and the wisest decision that the NCAA did back before NIL to allow players to declare, go through the workouts, get their evaluation, find out where they would be in the draft, and then give them the option to come back. They retain their eligibility. And so Uzan is going to the NBA to test the waters. He may be back. He may find out, hey, I'm actually a late lottery, mid first round pick. I don't know. But they had Houston. Then they had Duke. They had, I believe, UConn at number 4. They had some teams that were a little bit. I was a little bit not shocked at, but kind of taken off guard with. And then I get to number 11, and it's Purdue. You and I talked. You just said, even if they don't add somebody, Purdue's got one of the better teams in the country. If the season were to start today, there are not 10 teams better than the current Boilermaker roster.
No, and I think, I don't know if we mentioned this, but the premise behind Purdue being down there was the idea that Braden Smith, Rakoff, and Wren could both head to the NBA.
But Uzan wasn't mentioned in Houston's prognosis.
There are other players that I think would be much quicker to hit the draft than Smith or TKR or the transfer portal for that matter, and that didn't affect their rankings at all. So that really doesn't make any sense. I would say maybe they're just kind of basing it off of last season, except you've got UCLA up in the top 5, which I think UCLA is going to be a pretty good team.
They're going to be good, yes.
Yeah, but not a top 4 team, and certainly not ahead of Purdue at this point. Who knows down the road they gel and they progress through the season and they end up being one of the top teams. I'm not saying that any of these teams can't get there, but if you look at rosters and preseason rankings, Purdue is one of the most trustworthy teams in the country because they retain most of their players, because they develop so well, and their transfer portal additions are usually pretty effective. So to have Purdue as kind of the question mark out of all these teams, to me, doesn't make any sense, because you got other teams like Michigan and UCLA who are either adding these top recruiting classes or bringing in lots of transfers. Even Houston, they're going to have to rely on 3 freshmen probably in their starting lineup, or at least 2, depending on what Uzan does. And yeah, they're top 20 freshmen in the country. It's going to be like a Duke type of recruiting class. But still, they're relying on young freshmen to help fill these major roles in their roster. And yet there's still a solid number 1 in Purdue, who has the experience, and the retention still falls to 11. Like, that really doesn't make any sense to me.
And the one thing that kind of, excuse me, you mentioned it, and we talked about it off air, was, the biggest question mark was if TKR and Braden Smith go to the NBA. I wholeheartedly expect in the next couple of days to see them both declare. I really do. Because then that opens a different window that they have evaluations, they have things they can go through and talk to see where they're at in their draft. Then they can come back, just like Uzan can. They can go. I wholeheartedly expect both of them to, because of the progression. Now, their projection right now for both of them, both TKR and Braden Smith, are actually, I think it's just Braden Smith. He's expected to go mid to late second round. He ain't making $2 million as a second round draft pick. So to me, even if they say, oh, you could be an early second round, that's still not enough to get him to go, I don't think. And I don't know that TKR is even registered into to being in a draft position. So And there's only what 63 or 4 picks in the whole entire draft because there's only 2 rounds. So if they're not in the top 70, there's little to zero chance that they're going to get drafted. That's not damning them. That's just saying you're not there yet. Out of the draft class, you're ranked here. So it would probably be best for them to go back to school. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to what Zach Edey faced when he
Yeah.
tested the waters his junior year, where I think he was a projected early second round pick, which
Yep.
you can go probably get drafted, but might not really get much of a chance. You'll probably get sent down to the G League or at least some sort of two-way contract.
Right.
But instead he comes back for his senior season and he can boost his draft stock to where now he's a top 10 pick.
And
He
he was
plays
angry.
major rookie minutes. Yeah. And he had redemption to go back and play in a top-notch Purdue team to get back to the Final Four. And that's exactly what he did. And then he goes to the NBA and he's had a really good rookie season and has a chance to have a really nice career in the NBA. To me, I see that being the same sort of situation for Smith and
Yep.
TKR. You go, you test the waters, and then you come back, you make some NIL money while you're at it, but you join a Purdue team that has a chance to go back and win a national championship. You boost your draft stock, and now you're more set up to have a successful actual NBA career where you can play significant minutes in the NBA for 5, 6, however many years they end up being able to be successful and make quite a bit more money and just ultimately be better in every facet.
Well, and the blurb about Purdue in the USA Today rankings was, and if Smith and Kaufman Wren aren't there, Purdue will have to fall onto the backs of Jakari Harris and C.J. Cox and Fletcher Lawyer. Okay, you and I were
not
talking.
The end of it. I mean,
those both
good players too.
All 3 of those guys could be all Big Ten guys, and I really think the door will open at times next year for Cox and Harris to show that I mean, it kind of already did when Purdue played Alabama last year. Cox blew up for 23 or 24 points, and he had a personal 9-point run against the Tide, and so these guys are not, just because they were freshmen last year doesn't mean they don't have a huge upside. We just haven't seen it yet because they haven't needed to show it. It's kind of like Zach Edey and his 3-pointers. He didn't need to shoot them at Purdue, so he didn't. I made the statement before the draft even happened is he can shoot a 30-foot jumper. Does he make them with great percentage? No, but he doesn't need to shoot them at Purdue, so he doesn't. That's why he only attempted 1 in his whole entire college career. He didn't need to. But now that he's in the NBA, he shoots them once in a while, and he makes a good percentage of them. I think that's the same with Cox and Harris. Is they weren't needed to be leaned on, so they were allowed to develop slowly. Would they have rather started every game and averaged 12, 15 points a game? Sure they would. But they understood their position in the lineup and on the roster to where they could slowly develop, take the game in, see it develop in front of them when they didn't have to be on the floor.
Yeah, and they had, talking about Cox and Harris, they had their ups and downs a little bit throughout the year, like just like anybody does, especially freshmen, but they didn't quite hit the same sort of freshman wall that I think we see some players hit. In the tournament, they
Braden
both had
Smith,
some big plays.
His freshman year.
Smith and Lawyer, I think both of them kind of hit that.
Lawyer.
Yep. But Harris and Cox, both in those first 2 rounds especially, made some big plays, knocked down some open 3-pointers, played good defense. Like, they were contributing at a pretty high level off the bench and was a huge part of why Purdue even made the Sweet 16. So to be able to be that strong and still perform that well as freshmen, now coming in as sophomores, they're going to have more confidence. They're going to be overall better developed basketball players. We might not see standout seasons from them next year because Purdue will be deep at the guard position and they'll still be in similar roles to last year, but we're going to see 2 better basketball players, I think. And then if they do take bigger roles for whatever reason or down the road as they become juniors and seniors, I think we are going to see a really strong backcourt even once Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith leave, assuming that Harris and Cox stick around West Lafayette.
Well, I can tell you, they sure looked. Or if they aren't happy, they're really good at covering it, because I saw a couple of pictures from their Purdue's the football team's spring game was this weekend, but the bookstore had Cox and Harris signing autographs there, and I saw a few pictures. They had smiles on their face from ear to ear, and they looked like genuine. They didn't look like they were,
Just doing it for
smiles
the
that were
camera.
forced. They looked genuinely happy to be where they were, and I think unless they're really good grifters, I think they're okay with the way things are going right now. Would you like to be in the starting lineup? Absolutely. If you don't have that drive to be in the starting lineup, you shouldn't be playing basketball. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they understand. Well, we also have an All-American and one of the best shooters in the Big Ten at the guard position, and we've got to us two have to fight with probably three other people, if not more, for that third position, that number three spot in the lineup, because TKR and either Jacobson or Clough have the other two. There's going to be a lot of people vying for one starting spot. And CJ Cox already has, to me, the leg up simply because he was there last year as the starter.
Yeah, and why would you not be happy at Purdue? I mean, it's a great fan base. It's a great place to be. Matt Painter is a great coach, and you're playing for a good basketball team. Like, if you care about winning and you care about just enjoying the place that you are, and just all of those types of things that go along with that, Purdue is where you want to be. I mean, the fan base absolutely loves the players. Like, you don't really see large groups of fans or fans in general just hating on different players. Like, you see that in some of the other fan bases. I think there are certain players that they kind of start to dislike because they don't think they're very good for the team. They have these different deficiencies and whatnot, and you start to see fans be pretty frustrated with certain players. I don't think you see that from Purdue from a general standpoint.
At
I'm
least
not
as
saying,
much. Let's say it that way.
yeah. I think you'll probably see some fans that probably complain about certain players at times, and that's just the way it is. But I think from a general standpoint, the Purdue fan base loves their players just because for all the culture reasons that we've talked about for weeks now. And I think as a player, if it were me, that would mean quite a bit to just have a fan base that really cares about like you and just loves the program in that sort of way. And so there's just all those reasons why sure you're going to be maybe on a bench role this next year, but you're going to be playing for a good team. And like, why would you want to give that up to try and maybe get a starting spot at a team that's not as good and that doesn't have as good of a fan base and just overall just isn't comparable to Purdue?
Yeah, it's definitely one thing I wanted to say, piggyback off of what you said about some schools, their fans get a little bit more critical. Shame on you. More than likely you're in your mid to late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s when you're being the fan of a program, and you are trashing a young man that's probably 18, 19, maybe 20 years old. Come on, man. What were you doing at that age? I'm sure it wasn't playing at a very high level basketball program. And even if you were, you know how hard it is. So shame on you. And any Boilermaker fans that are bad mouthing, and I'm saying bad mouthing the player in general. Shame on you, because you know what? They're developing. They're working hard. They're not doing anything intentional to screw up. I mean, the last thing any player wants to do, and you're a college athlete, Grant, would you intentionally do something to make yourself look bad?
Not a chance.
No. So take that into consideration before you sit there and try to drag somebody through the mud. And yes, they should have excuse me, they're a public figure in this aspect. They should be able to take some ribbing. Okay, yeah. I get that. But at the same time, know what you're doing. You're literally trying to tear down a teenage or early 20s kid.
And just because they should be able to handle it or can handle it, that's not an excuse to do it.
No.
Like it's
yeah.
It
shame on you. I'll leave it at that, because no. No, I mean, no. So let's jump to our final, our second topic of our show title. Just for the last few minutes, we during the off season we've mentioned a couple of different times that we're going to do some other things other than just talk about the current roster or last season or this coming up season or whatever. But historically memorable Boilermaker teams from the past. We want to kind of break down and highlight some of those and profile them, and then talk about just the overall season as a whole and what that means to Boilermaker history. But we've talked that we have some ideas of some teams, and I've got five right off the top of my list here that we're gonna cover at some point. But we want to know from our listeners what teams would you like to hear us talk about? We've got, I'll give you the five that we've got, and then we would love to hear from anybody about what you would like to hear, or if these are the ones, or if there's some other ones. We're up for anything. Now, every single one of these except for the fifth one, Grant was not alive for.
Yeah.
And that one, not 100% sure when you were born, Grant, but this one you were kind of young for, even as that one. But we're looking at the 68-69 Boilermaker team. They made the Final Four. So that was the first time the Boilermakers had ever made the Final Four in the tournament. So that is one, the Rocket on that, Rick Mount on that team helped the Boilermakers get to the Final Four that year. That is one that we will be talking about at some point during the off season. The 93-94 basketball season, probably Gene Katie's arguably, if not the best, the second best team ever for him to have during his tenure in West Lafayette. That was the Glenn Robinson, Conzo Martin, Brandon Brantley. So Coach Brantley was part of this team. And the team that made the run to the Elite Eight and fell short to Duke. The 88-89 is the other team that would be arguably one of, if not the best team that Gene Katie had in his tenure. They lost in the Sweet 16, a big upset by Kansas State in Detroit in the tournament. One of those that they were ranked number 3 in the country going into the tournament. They were a 1 seed. They were expected to get to the Final Four, and they fell short. A running theme in Gene Katie's history of getting right to the precipice of getting to that Final Four and then falling short. But and then the one that I was about 6 months old when this happened, but the 79-80 season led to a Final Four appearance for the Boilermakers. The last time before last year's adventure to the Final Four. That team or that season is another one. And then finally the 2009-2010 season. This one ended with Purdue getting beat in the Sweet 16 by Duke. Duke ended up winning the national championship against Butler in Indianapolis. If you recall, it was the Gordon Hayward shot from just beyond half court that was half an inch away from banking in, and he just missed it. But Duke ended up winning the national title by 2. That was the year that Robbie Hummel blew out his knee in Minnesota with 2 games left in the Big Ten season. And Purdue was one of those teams that was looked at as potentially being a Final Four team, and that would have been something for them to be able to go back or go and play in the Final Four in Indianapolis. Ooh. Let's think about that one there. But those are the 5 teams. And then we have the infamous other capability of teams that we would like to profile. But those 5, 68-69, 93-94, 88-89, 79-80, and then the 2009-10 season are some teams that we want to look at. We're not really trying to get too close to present day, simply because it's still kind of fresh. Like the 18-19 season, we can still talk about that. Anybody that, we know what happened. These other seasons are ones that are kind of lost a little bit because of the distance away from where we are now.
Yeah, and I agree. Like most people probably still remember, like that 2019 season was hard to forget.
I
So.
still have dreams about it. Like, oh man, just feeling the disappointment, and not at Purdue, just the disappointment of course, that's how it happens.
Yeah, yeah. Because there was a point in that second half where Virginia got up by like 8 points or something, and I remember thinking like, oh, we battled hard, but like Virginia's just that good of a team, and probably not going to get it done. And then Carson Edwards just goes off, and then they're up, and Eifert gets the rebound, and you're thinking, oh, we're actually going to pull this off, and then smoke and all sorts of stuff happens. Virginia pulls it out.
I still contest the clock didn't start when it should have. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that's how the reason why it didn't seem to me that it started when it should have, and that kind of grinds me a little bit. Like it for 4.3 seconds to take about 8.5 seconds really just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you know what? Play better defense, or get the rebound in the backcourt.
Yeah. Or Ryan Klein make both your free throws.
Or Ryan Klein make both free throws.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting blame on anybody. It's just so many little things that were like, oh, they just did that, if they just did that there, if they just, well, that's the way it is with any game, honestly, any loss. I mean, had Braden Smith not went to cover the flyer on the guy on the inbound, he doesn't leave a wide open gap for Uzan to get the ball right back to him and lay it in.
Yeah, I mean,
so
yeah.
And if they call the push off
about that game,
they call the push off, so every game has those things. But but we would love to hear about the teams. You can send us a post or a message on the platform formerly known as Twitter at _Lounge. You can send us a message on the feed here, or if you really want, you can go to loungesportsnetwork.us, and there's a page at the bottom, or part of the bottom of the page, that you can send us an email if you really want. So there are multiple ways, or you can just leave us a comment on a post of some sort. I don't care what teams we cover, because it's all Purdue. We have no problem talking about the black and gold, and hopefully in the next couple of days we'll get some idea of maybe what our roster looks like a little bit more, with maybe some ads into the roster. If we hear that Braden Smith and TKR go to the NBA, don't freak out. Please don't freak out, because if they do stay in the draft, that means they're going to end up high up in the draft. I really don't think anybody that, unless they have to, knows that they're going to be drafted in the second round will stay in the draft, especially in the world that we live in with NIL. You can make a lot more money as a college basketball player than a second round draft pick that's going back and forth between the NBA squad and the G League. It's just the way college basketball works these days.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely don't expect either of them to stick it out this season, but definitely could see them declare and test the waters. So
sure,
like you said, don't freak out about it. We're probably gonna get him back, and I would just,
and maybe their projections now, without even being evaluated, they're like, there's no reason for us to do it, because if we work on our whole entire game now, they will give you personalized and directed, like, you need to work on this, you need to work on this. That's why I anticipate them both going, so they can find out those areas that NBA teams are looking for improvements in. You can guess all day long, but if you don't know it, haven't heard it from the horse's mouth from an NBA scout, you may not know exactly what you're needing to get going. And I guess maybe this is a world where agents hadn't to have that knowledge. Maybe agents can talk to those guys and they can do it just by film. I don't know, but it's going to be a fun off season. especially once April 22nd rolls around. In 8 days, we can maybe breathe a little bit better sigh of a relief because the portal closes and we don't have to worry about whether or not any of our guys are leaving. And it's a really difficult time frame right now when you've got, in your eyes and most other eyes, not USA Today's eyes, one of the best teams in the country coming back next year.
Yeah, and every time we record, we get so much closer to April 22nd.
Yep.
It's like, all right.
And by the time we roll around on Friday, it'll be the 18th. So that'll be, I mean, literally, we'll record on the 21st. Our Monday show next week will be on the 21st. So we'll still be in that limbo. But that's what the point where you've got to go, okay, I'm declaring, okay, I commit somewhere. Like, it literally needs to be a quick turnaround when it comes to that. But I don't anticipate a ton. So, but we have talked a lot about some various things. And so I guess it was a cornucopia or a potpourri, so to speak, of topics this week. But that wraps up today's Monday edition of the Boilermaker Lounge. Hope that we've got some more news come Friday. But thank you so much for joining us. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you on Friday.